Hello, and welcome to the M.O.B. report. I'm Nick Odell. The holiday season is in full swing, which means a few things. Tons of great food, get-togethers with family and friends, and the winter cold taking over our weather. However, with all of that, it is important to remember safety precautions when it comes to seasonal-related matters like the flu, eating and preparing holiday food properly, winter safety, and staying active during the cold season. For this segment of the M.O.B. report, Channel 15's Chris Stone spoke with Public Health Director Jeanne Galloway on ways to safely prepare for the holiday season. Let's take a look.
Jeanne, it's good to have you on the show today.
It's nice to be here, Chris. Thanks.
So let's dive right into the topics today.
Sure.
So today we're going to talk about seasonal related matters. And you know, it's getting cold out, which means we get sick. And part of being sick is the cold and the flu.
Right.
But who is at high risk for the flu?
Well, anybody's at risk, but a high risk, you have mostly the young and the elderly, and then folks with chronic disease or other symptoms or situations that put them at risk, like they've just had a transplant or they're fighting some sort of a cancer or something like that. Those folks are the most at risk. So, but everybody should get a shot anyway.
All right. Now, how do you know if you have the flu? You know, what are some of the symptoms of the flu?
Yeah, it's a good question because sometimes it's hard to tell. People just kind of throw it all into one category, and it's not necessarily the case. And they are different, so it's important to know which one you've got. So if you've got the flu, chances are, and it's not the same for everybody, you'll have a fever, a cough, sore throat, runny or stuffy nose, some body aches, and they can be some pretty bad ones, headache, chills, and fatigue. Those can be the big ones.
So, cold versus flu. You know, it seems like they're pretty much the same, but they're not. What are some of the key differences?
Well, on the big picture-wise, you've got one that's a virus and one that's a bacteria. Smaller picture as it hits you, they are different symptomatics. I mean, you're looking at the same thing. Sometimes cold has one, flu doesn't, and the severity is different. And I think to make it easier for folks, we should actually put it up on a chart if you can do that for folks and show how that looks. But they're different. It may not seem like it when you're in the throes of this, but they really are, and it makes a difference as you go forward with treatment and care.
All right, so if you end up getting sick, what should you do?
Well, first thing is to stay away from people. So if you've got something that's contagious, please don't bring it to work. You know, stay home, rest, relax, get better, and then come back. If your symptoms do get worse or they linger longer than you believe they should, then you should contact your primary care physician and then have them direct you as to what to do at that point. You want to kind of avoid going to emergency rooms as your first line of defense here, because sometimes that can just spread the disease to other people or also make you susceptible to what else might be there. So primary care first, ER last, unless you've got a more emergent issue.
Now, keyword emergency. You just brought that up. So, what are there any emergency signs of the flu that you should be cautious of?
Definitely. And some of these are going to be your basic. So if you've got these symptoms, regardless of whether they're associated with flu or not, you might want to get some additional care. Things like shortness of breath, dizziness, your skin's turning a little blue, and it's particularly in children. It's sometimes even when they're not able to explain to you what's going on. If you're seeing something different, get them to some care. And also if children aren't drinking enough or they're not behaving as they normally do. These are things to keep in mind and seek additional attention for them. And of course, anything that doesn't resolve in a short period of time, or if you've got a rash with it. So definitely take care.
Now the holidays are coming up, you know, and we're interacting with everybody, we're visiting family and friends. Easy way to get sick. So how do you prevent getting the flu around the holidays?
One of the easiest things to do is to get a flu vaccine. They're so easy to get these days. That's the best thing to do. And now's the time to do it. You know, we're 3 weeks out of Thanksgiving. thereabouts.
Yep.
It takes about 2 weeks for the vaccine, your body to kick in and really make the antibodies that you need. Now's the time to do it. You can go anywhere and get them. Of course, if you don't get it now before Christmas, whenever you get your holidays, your big gatherings, a couple of weeks beforehand, plan it in advance. It's a good thing to do. And if you don't go that route, if for some reason you choose not to or you're allergic to it, then the other things you can do is to remain healthy. So eat well, exercise, drink plenty of fluids, wash your hands frequently, cover your cough, this kind of thing, just to make sure that you're not spreading it or not catching it from other people.
So don't cover it with your hand. Is that growing up? I was taught, hey, cover it with when you sneeze, you got to cover it with your hand.
Right.
Not so much with the hand, more with the arm.
More
Correct?
right into your elbow, and the reason for that is, how you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You don't want to do that, or your doorknobs or anything like that. So
Right.
it's really into the elbow, little less spreading of things that way.
That makes sense. Going back to the flu shot, though, who can get a flu shot? Can anybody? And how often should you get the flu shot?
Depending upon where you go to get them, but there are flu vaccines available for ages 6 months and up. There's several different types of them, so even folks who are allergic can get a shot at some point. So you can get them at your primary care physician. That's the best place to go. Just about every corner pharmacy has them available now. The health department has them available. If you need to, go to our website, give us a call, make an appointment to come in for a vaccine. But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of it out there right now.
Yeah. How often is the flu shot available for, and is there a cost to it?
There's costs, and the costs vary with your insurance and where you're going, with your co-pays and things like that. So that's something to keep in mind if you're searching, but most insurances should cover them. Generally, the flu shot is kind of good for 6 to 7 months or so. They think it depends. Individual susceptibilities and all kinds of variables that are typical out there. But now's the time to do it. Vaccines were made available in September, so if you got them then, you should be fine into March. And generally October to March, November, that general time period from fall to spring, as we go through the end of the year, is our flu season here in the Northern Hemisphere. So any time in there is good. And you can get it as late as February as well. It just will help you sooner.
Right. Well, thank you for the seasonal related matters. Now we're going to move on. We're going to dive right into our next topic, which is food safety. The holidays, with the holidays coming up, we love to cook and eat and whatnot. But, what are some safe steps to follow when you cook a meal?
Yeah. Yep. Well, and it's related because you don't want your sick people cooking your food either, because that's one way to spread it. But the things to keep in mind for food safety at any time of the year, and there are some specifics for Thanksgiving, but are to clean, separate, cook, and chill. So by cleaning, we're not talking about your house to get ready for guests. We're talking about your utensils, your cutting boards, those kinds of things, all your cookware. And then making sure that you don't use the same utensils and knives and cutting boards that you used on raw meat on fresh vegetables. Because then you do cross-contamination, and you need to keep them separate. So have separate cutting boards, have separate utensils for foods, meats, fish, vegetables, all those kinds, kind of keep them separate. And then you want to cook things thoroughly. That'll kill germs. And then also chill them properly at the end. And when we get into cooking, it's specific depending upon how you've got your, in this case, turkey we'll talk about.
Sure.
Make sure that it's in the thickest part of the meat. You take the temperature, 165. But if you've stuffed the bird, you need to take that temperature elsewhere, and it needs to be just as high to make sure that anything that was on the inside also gets cooked. So, and then some people say, one way to make sure your bird is safe is to not put the stuffing on the inside. But if you're like me, you like that meat the best. That's the best there. But got to be safe. So whatever works for folks. I mean, those are just some methods to use.
All right. So we talked about cooking the meal. Now it's time to eat the meal. What are some safe steps to follow when you're eating the meat? When you're eating during the holidays?
Eating a fresh cooked meal is pretty good. You want to make sure that it's pretty much cook and serve, short period of time to go through the meal. I mean, everybody wants to go round after round, but if you're still sitting up at the table, you should be good. But Once people set with that first meal and you're kind of pushing away and waiting maybe to halftime of the next football game for your next meal, then you want to make sure you put foods away. Shouldn't leave anything out more than 2 hours, because that's when bacteria will start to get to the levels where it could be a problem, and then you would need to then reheat them again and a whole other process. But if your plan is to go from the turkey on the carcass to a turkey sandwich, you want to make sure you keep it temperature controlled in between.
Good to know, good to know. And my favorite part of the meal is the leftovers. So you get, if you can get leftovers for a week or two, I personally think that's the best part. Turkey sandwiches, turkey soup, you name it.
Yep.
But what are some safe steps to follow when handling leftovers and of course eating them?
Eat them. Yep. Leftovers is a good thing, good to keep in mind, because when you go from the cooked meal and even to that next halftime meal, break things down to cool them. So take the meat off the carcass, separate the potatoes into smaller batches, the same thing, anything else you've got in a large batch, make them smaller, they'll cool a little bit faster. In this process, if you want to package a few things up to send home with your guests, that's always a good thing too. Yeah. It's a little less to worry about. But if you do want to have a lot of leftovers, freeze them sooner, they'll last a little bit longer. Generally, in the refrigerator, leftovers 3-4 days max.
Okay.
So if you want to keep them longer, then you should put them in the freezer and you get weeks to months out of them.
Good to know, good to know. And now we're going to move into our next topic, which is winter safety, with the cold weather right around the corner. Actually, we already got snow, believe it or not, in October. But how can people prepare their home for the winter?
That's a good question. There's a lot of work to do. It's not too late. Never too late to shouldn't say never, but it's getting there. Make sure that you've got a supply of batteries for flashlights, a supply of flashlights as well, maybe some battery-operated candles in case the power goes out. If you've got a generator, make sure that it's running. Try it now, make sure it works, but store it appropriately. You don't want to end up with a carbon monoxide issue coming into the house. Make sure your furnace has been cleaned, it's operating properly. Refill your oil furnace tanks. All kinds of things, your air filters, those kinds of things to make sure that your home is safe for the winter weather.
Wonderful. And you kind of touched up on my next question, which is how do you keep your heating system safe in the winter? And what are some good ways to prepare your heating system, whether it's natural gas or oil or propane, whatever?
Any of those. Usually you'll have some sort of a furnace system in there. They need to be cleaned out to make sure you don't have any soot deposits and that you're operating at optimum capacity. Can save you some money there too.
Sure.
But a lot of that work should probably be done by a professional, and there would be a good idea to go. But unless you got the skills to clean them, every year is good. Change the air filter, generally something a homeowner can do, and that's always a good thing to keep it running house safely.
Good to know. And the winter is not a friendly month for our cars. So people who are lucky to have automobiles, the winter can be a stressful time and sometimes an expensive time to handle your automobiles. So what are some ways to get your car ready for the winter?
A lot of the same things. You want to make sure that motor's still running so you can keep the heat going too. So change your oil, make sure you got plenty of fluids like your washer fluids, and that you've got good tires. You want to make sure that the tread depth is good on them and that they've got the proper air pressure so they get the good grip on the road. But you also want to have some other supplies in your car in case you're not moving. Get stuck in traffic somewhere, even if nothing bad happens to you, you just can't move. It'd be nice to have blankets, maybe a shovel that you can use to get some of the snow out from away from your tailpipe, maybe some dried food products, packaged items, power bars, bottle of water can't hurt. And if there's more than one of you in the car at the same time, then you want to make sure you've got enough for several people.
So those are some great ways to prepare for emergencies. And like you said, batteries, having a generator ready, emergency kits, blankets, you name it. So, and finally, personal safety tips. What are some steps that we can take to make sure that we're safe as an individual in the wintertime? Yep.
Personal care is good. It's a year-round thing. It's kind of be a dedication.
It really is.
To yourself, It's a good thing. But kind of like your car and your house, you want to keep your engine going, so you want to be healthy. You want to wear the proper footwear there too, again, for tread, making sure you've got a good safe step where you're walking, that you keep warm. depending upon like what the temperature is outside and the wind. You can have wind chill issues, so you need to cover your skin so you don't end up with frostbite or hypothermia. So it's really important to wear layers when it's appropriate. So just pay attention to the forecasts and see what's out there. They're not always right, but it still gives you a good way to plan your day. It can't hurt.
True.
So those kinds of things.
And that kind of leads into our last segment, which is staying active during the cold season. It's not easy to, it's
not.
With the temperatures dropping, it kind of it demotivates you to go out and do anything. But it's very important to stay active as best you can in the wintertime. So how can you stay on track with your current exercise routines or practices?
And maintaining your exercise is important year-round. And maybe this time of year, you don't do the exact same things you did, but you make some changes. So maybe if you normally walk around the block outside, you can still do that in the wintertime if you prepare. But you could also maybe go to the mall, walk around there a little bit, join a club. Possibly even the high school in West Springfield would be open during the winter. It was previously, maybe again. We'll see how that goes. Or, sometimes you just need to go the senior center. They have programs. You do the chair yoga. Just be active, be warmer, and just kind of keep your body moving and loose so that you're not more susceptible to other issues as well. And of course, all those folks who enjoy outdoor sports anyway, skiing, hiking, they should be wearing the right clothing for that activity and using the right gear so that you can also not have injuries there as well.
Right. And, everybody knows that it's healthy to stay active, obviously,
It is.
whether it's winter or summer. But, what are some other benefits to staying active, especially in the wintertime?
Yep. Staying active, it does so much for you. I mean, it keeps you good blood pressure, can keep you in shape to fight off illnesses. It also, now if you're going to have to go out and shovel, you'll be a little bit better shape, because if you're not in good health, you shouldn't be out shoveling.
Right.
So a lot of injuries happen when that house goes on. So just be careful if you've had some issues or just aren't capable of doing that any longer. Then,
Jeanne, I want to thank you for being on our program today, and all the tips were very insightful and helpful, and I know some things I'm going to have to get going on soon before it's too late. But again, Jeanne Galloway, she's the Director of Public Health with the town of West Springfield. And Jeanne, it's a pleasure.
great. Thank you very much.
We hope to have you again soon.
I'll be back.
All right.